Okay, we're live. I'm Gava Guy. What do you prefer to be called?
Arcane is fine. My name's
Arcane? Okay.
Arcane Logos, but
All right. I prefer Gava Guy, if that's
Gava
all
guy.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, so first of all, I just kind of wanted to go back to the two Quoque fallacy thing. Um, my first question is, do you concede that the example that I gave in that video with the flapping the arms to fly, was that an example of the tu quoque fallacy in the first instance, where the person said, well, no one can flap their arms to fly, therefore I'm not morally culpable?
Well, the fallacy itself is it's a ad hominem sort of a appeal to hypocrisy to say
Right.
that, well, um, you can't tell me I can't do it because you can't do it. If it's bad for you, it's bad for me, but you're doing it, therefore it can't be bad for me. So you can't tell me it's bad for me. So that's a form of it. But for somebody like JD to say, I can't because nobody can, that is fallacious. And it's a form of the two quoque fallacy.
I I
I get
don't
what
think.
you're saying, but it's
Right.
still a
Right. Well, what he's saying is that it's not possible. What you're saying
what I'm
can
not.
be done, as far as finding a solution to the hard solipsism question. And how can we prove that we're not a brain in a vat? He's saying he can't do it, and no one else can either. So
Right.
if you, what he's saying is not fallacious if it's true. It might be false, but you would have to then demonstrate a way to solve that problem. And it's also possible that, let's say you have a solution to it, perhaps you're the only one, and JD Kane doesn't have a solution to that problem within his he's not doesn't have it accessible to him.
Hmm. Yeah. Either way you slice it, it's fallacious. For one, because even if it were the case that I couldn't solve that problem, for him to say, well, I can't solve it, I don't see how anyone else can solve it, therefore you can't solve it either, so we're in the same boat, so it really doesn't matter. That's definitely a form of the tu quoque fallacy. It's a fallacy because he does not know better, and he's appealing to what he thinks I know in order to justify or um, explain away his position as being invalid. So it's still a fallacy, a form of the tu quoque, but also what he did was he said, I can't know that I'm a brain and I'm not a brain in a vat, but you can't either. Now think about that for a second. If
Hmm.
he doesn't know that he's not a brain in a vat, he can't possibly know what I can know.
He can. What he's saying is that we are all in this same reality, and
Yeah.
you're when you're saying that he can't know that, you're saying you're using the term in a different sense than he is using it, because you are using it in a sense of absolute knowledge, and that's not the way that he is using it.
So he's saying he has a belief then?
He's saying that he has a belief, yes. So, I mean, do you disagree that you're in the same reality with me? We're both in the same reality, true?
Not necessarily. Well, let's be consistent with the terms that we're using in our respective positions. His
Okay.
position is he can't know anything outside of his own mind. That is
Okay. Well, let's turn away from J.D. Kane and your
to
your
your
discussion with him.
Right. According to JD's reality, he can't know what's outside of his own mind. According to my reality, I can. So you're right. There's only one reality. The difference is we differ in our respective perceptions of it. So according to his position, if he cannot know what's outside of his own mind, he cannot know what I can know. So it'd be fallacious for him to say, well, I can't know anything outside my own mind, but guess what? You can't either. That's fallacious.
Well, what he's saying is that unless you have some perception, some means of perceiving something that he does not have, then you are in the same boat as he is.
How did you know that?
Because he knows what he can perceive, and he is postulating that.
But that's all in his mind. That's in his mind. That's not necessarily what's real in reality.
Mm-hmm. But that's the best that he can know. All he can know is what he perceives. Is what he's saying.
It's not my fault he holds that position. Well, it's if you don't see the inconsistency there, the contradiction in saying, I can't know anything outside of my own mind, but I'm going to say that these guys can't either, even though they are outside of my own mind. What he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. He's saying, I can't know anything outside of my mind, but according to what's going on outside of my mind, they can't know it either.
But again, he is not saying that he has knowledge of this, what's happening with you, in an absolute sense.
Sure he is. He's saying I can't know something.
No, he's saying not in an absolute sense, but he's saying this is what he believes based on what he can perceive of the reality that he's in. And I mean, what else does he have to work with?
Well, that doesn't matter.
That's what he's saying.
Sure, I get what he's saying, but he's contradicting himself. If he's asking for something outside of his mind to show him that he can know something outside of his mind, he's assuming that he can know things outside of his mind, at the same time maintaining the position that he can't know anything outside of his mind. He is contradicting himself as soon as he says, well, show me how you can know anything outside of your mind. He's giving up his position. So he's very inconsistent. So when I hold him to the consistency of the implications of his position, he crumbles, and he has nothing but fallacies.
So, hold on. How is it inconsistent for him to ask you to present something to demonstrate what you're claiming that you can do?
Think about the implications of what he's saying. He's saying, I cannot know anything outside of my own mind, but I want you to show me something which is outside of my own mind.
Okay.
He's assuming that he can know things outside of his own mind when he asks me for something.
Right, but he assumes that he is not in a brain in a vat as well.
But he doesn't know it.
Right.
Right. That's the problem. He wants to say, I can't know what's outside of my own mind. I am outside of his mind.
Right.
But he's saying that I can't know something too. That therefore implying that he can know things outside of his own mind.
Okay.
Contradicting himself. I mean, and if you can't see that, I mean.
Yeah, I don't see that as inherently contradictory. I think that he is using the sense of know in the practical sense, not in an absolute philosophical sense. And I would say that there's a distinction there, and that he is using it consistently.
Well, truth is absolute, and the definition of knowledge is justified true belief. So if he's having these beliefs, if he believes that he can't know something outside of his own mind, and he can at the same time asking for proof of something that's outside of his own mind, if everything's subjective and is contradictory from the very beginning. So my definition of knowledge is justified true belief. Something that's true cannot be false. And if he's claiming that he cannot know anything outside of his own mind, he's talking about something true. He cannot know something to be the case outside of his own mind. So he's all over the place. He does not have a foundation to engage me if he says he can't know anything outside of his own mind. Why is he asking for evidence outside of his mind if he affirms that he can't know what's outside of his mind.
Because he's saying that he perceives things that he believes to be outside of his mind.
Right, so he's being inconsistent with his position.
No. Okay, but let's. We're not going to agree on that point, I think. So.
Well, hold on. If we can't even agree on that point, it would be meaningless to continue this conversation, because I presuppose reasoning and logic in this conversation. If you don't see that as contradictory, then it would be pointless.
Okay, but I presuppose that I have a naturalistic means of answering the questions that you have posed to J.D. Kane.
So you can know
So I would like to. Yes, I can know that absolutely with certainty.
So you can solve the problem of hard solipsism.
That's right.
Okay. Well, if you well, I find that hard to believe if you don't even see the point that I just made about J.D. Kane's contradiction. Mm-hmm. So if you don't see that simple failure in logic, I don't see.
Right, but that's irrelevant to the argument that I would like to make.
Well, it's very relevant as far as our foundations for this conversation.
Okay. Would you like to set the parameters for the foundations for this conversation?
I want you to explain to me how it's not contradictory for someone to say, I cannot know what's outside of my own.
Because once again, he's making a distinction between the term to know absolutely.
We can't move forward.
Okay. Well, I guess that's it then. But so.
Right. So you agree that you cannot show that is not a contradiction?
No, I think that I've said that, and then you keep denying it, but that doesn't mean that it's not true.
Okay. Well, like I said, if you can't see that is a contradiction, it would be meaningless to continue the conversation. I mean, I respect your position and I respect your beliefs, but as far as having a meaningful conversation and being consistent with the laws of logic and reasoning that we both assume, it would be fruitless to continue. We'll talk past each other.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Could I ask you a question?
Sure. Well, okay, yeah, go ahead.
So my question to you is, what is the means that by which you can know things with certainty?
I'm sorry, either I or you lost connection. I missed what you said.
I'm sorry. I'll say it again. How is it that you can know things with absolute certainty?
Okay, like I said 5 seconds ago, if you're going to ask me about my epistemology and you can't justify how that was not a contradiction,
but I'm not here to justify J.D. Kane.
You're going to attempt to reason with me, correct?
Yes.
Right. So it'd be fruitless for me to reason with you if you don't understand the reasoning of my previous point.
Okay. I understand it, and I concede that J.D. Kane is irrational. Can we move on?
Is that what you actually believe?
Yes.
So you're saying right here live on Hangout that it was an actual fallacy that J.D. Kane was using against you?
Well, he wasn't using a fallacy, but what he said was false.
Well,
and I disagree
it's
with
false
J.D.
because it's a fallacy.
No, there's difference. There's a difference. One is related to form, the other is related to content.
Well, both his content and his form.
If you can't understand the difference between a false statement and a formal fallacy, then or an informal fallacy, then we can't move on, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, he did both.
No. Because again, I gave an example in the video that I posted earlier, where I gave an example where it followed the same form, but it was not fallacious.
It was still fallacious.
So if someone says that you're immoral because you are unable to flap your arms to try and fly, and a person counters that by saying, no one can flap their arms, I'm not morally culpable for that. That's fallacious, that's a fallacy.
Wait, I think I misunderstand what you said before. That is a false equivocation to the conversation that me and J.D. Kane had.
I'm not trying to say it's the same. My point is that it's the same form.
No, it wasn't, because it's
What's different about the form?
Well, it was a different situation. The form would not be the same in the sense that JD was talking about it. You're talking about
I'm using the argument has the
show me
same
how.
form that J.D. Kane was using.
No, I think
So
we're
if the
talking
form
about
is invalid in J.D. Kane's situation, then the form, I mean, unless you can point out where it's different in form.
So you're saying it's valid to say I can't, so neither can you.
No, that is not what I'm saying, and that is not what J.D. Kane said.
That is exactly what JD King said.
No, it is not.
He said I can't know that I'm not a brain in a vat, and neither can you.
What his deeper point was that no one has that capability.
Okay.
Now,
Now, if he can't know what's outside of his own brain, how can he know what everyone else can know?
he's saying that he does know things that are outside of his own brain.
Well,
He just doesn't know them with certainty
no.
in the
See,
way that you were meaning.
that's the bait and switch. That is also fallacious. What he's trying to say is, I have a belief, but it's not necessarily knowledge. But he's saying it as if it is a knowledge claim, i.e., nobody can know what's outside of their own brain, and neither can I. Well, if you can't, JD, you can't know what's in my brain.
Okay.
If you can't see that point, like I said, that would make it
Right.
fruitless.
I see your point now. So can we move forward? I would like to ask you about your how it is that you can know things with certainty.
Okay, if you can see the point that what JD did was a logical fallacy, according to his position, that he betrayed his position when he made his knowledge claim about me, then we can move forward.
Okay, let's move forward.
Well, I want you to concede that. I want you to say it out of your mouth.
I concede your point. I concede your point.
What was the point?
The point is that if J.D. Kane cannot know things that are outside of his own mind, that he cannot try to ask you to provide him information demonstrating what you know without being self-contradictory.
Right, and it would be fallacious to say that I can't know it either.
I understand what you're saying. Now, how is it that you can know things with certainty?
Now, are you assuming now that you can solve the same problem that J.D. Kane has?
I can solve it, yes.
Okay. Demonstrate that you can solve it.
No, please. I asked you a question. I've conceded your point, and now I would like to hear how you solve the problem.
Well, it would be fruitless for me to tell you if you cannot know it outside of your own. If something outside of your own brain, it would be pointless for me to tell you something.
I can, and we can get to my means of solving the problem, but I would like to hear how you solve the problem.
Well, you've been in several hangouts with me, and you know my position. Okay, so I think you know how I solve this problem. So
you're wrong. You can't tell me what I know, just like J.D. Kane can't tell you what you know.
Well, I'm not assuming J.D. Kane's solipsistic position.
Right.
Right.
So you can read other people's minds?
No, but I know that you have been in hangouts with me. I know that you know that I'm a Christian.
I haven't paid that close attention to the way you've explained it. Can you explain it to me?
Do you understand my epistemology as a Christian?
I don't. Please explain it.
Okay. Well, my epistemology is always the same. It will not change. Everything that I know by and through revelation from God.
Okay. And how does that occur?
Now, I gave you my answer to the question. Now I want you to establish that you can actually know it.
I don't agree with your statement. I don't understand it yet. How does that happen? How do you receive a revelation from God?
Can you know something outside of your own brain? Can you solve the problem of hard solipsism?
Yes, I can, but please answer my question. How do you receive a revelation from God?
Well, do you understand what the Christian God is?
Yes.
Okay. Well, given that you understand that, you know that the Christian God is powerful and smart enough to reveal to his creation what is the case about reality. Now, I need to know how.
How does that happen, though?
If I knew that, I would be God.
You're avoiding the question.
That doesn't negate the validity of my answer.
But it doesn't answer the question. How does that happen?
Okay. Again, do you understand what the concept of the Christian God is?
I do, but does it happen? I mean, there are certain ways that things happen in the world. Is that true or false?
Before I designed it.
Well, you don't have to know it. It's not.
Right.
You don't know it.
I'm sorry, Patrick. I'm gonna mute you because we're getting some other
Oh,
sound
sorry.
in here. Okay.
Didn't realize you guys can hear me. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Hi, Patrick.
Um, so how do you receive the revelation from the Christian God?
Same way you do.
I don't perceive that. So I'm asking how does that happen?
How do you know that you don't perceive it if you can't know what's outside of your own brain?
I can. I told you that I can.
Well, sure, you just made a statement, but I'd like you to justify
No,
that before we move
I'm
forward.
sorry. You are dodging the question.
I answered the question, you
No,
just
you
don't
have not.
understand
You
it.
said that you've received it. You've made a claim, but you
Right.
haven't explained it.
I answered your question, and now you want to dig deeper. But I
Yes.
want to, before we move forward, the answer to the question is valid if you understand the concept of the Christian God, which you said you did.
It's yes, but maybe my conception is different than yours.
Possibly that's why I'm asking you to justify your epistemology now, since you claimed you can have knowledge.
Well, but why is it that we have to jump to me before we've settled yours?
Okay, before we move on with the conversation, it would be reasonable to establish that we can both have knowledge. Okay, so.
Okay. So I have what's called a transmigdala in my brain.
I would
It is.
ask you, how do you solve the problem that you
I'm
say
explaining.
Kane can't solve?
I'm explaining. In my brain, and in yours as well, there is what's called a transmigdala. This is a material substance that is outside of time, and it is perceivable by us in our brain, and it can tell us that we know things with absolute certainty.
And how do you know that?
Because it tells me. I mean, I perceive it and I know it.
How do you know you're not a brain in a vat perceiving that whole false reality?
This material substance makes it clear.
So a material substance
That's
in
right.
your brain.
So now I've answered your question. Can we get back to you? How is it that you receive a revelation from a God?
Oh, and you broke up. I was asking you a question. So you said a material substance in your brain. This I forgot the name of it.
Transmigdala.
Transmigdala. And what does this transmigdala?
Wait, no, you're trying to dig deeper. I'm sorry, you're
No,
trying to dig deeper
what you're
into my
doing here is
claim.
begging the question I'm pointing out to you.
Well, how is it that you're not begging the question when you talk about a revelation from a God, but you won't give any details about how that happens?
Because what you're talking about is something inside of your own brain. I'm appealing to something outside.
No, but this is a substance that transcends time, and it has been there.
You said it was material.
Yes, it's material.
Material is not eternal.
It is. This is.
So you're talking about a material substance that is also eternal.
That's right.
Okay, do you realize that space, time, and matter is a continuum which came into existence, right?
How do you know that?
It's been scientifically shown that
where is
matter
it?
is not
Do you have
eternal.
a paper that shows that?
Excuse me?
How do you know that?
Well, there's several ways that we know that scientifically. Well, for one, the concept of a past eternal material universe is mathematically impossible, for one. It leads to several contradictions of what we currently know in the physical world, that matter, substance, time, and energy cannot be created or destroyed, and it came into existence at a finite point in the past. That's pretty uncontroversial. Now, if you're positing that something material transcends space, time, and matter, you first have to show how that's not a contradiction in what we know. And secondly, you're talking about something that's material in your own brain. Now, does this material thing have knowledge?
It reveals to me that I can know things with certainty.
So it has knowledge.
I wouldn't say that per se, but it allows me to make the claim that I can know things with certainty.
I think it would be more fair to say that this material substance in your brain is a product of a process or a part of a process which gives you the illusion of knowledge. It is not necessarily a conscious revealer of knowledge.
No,
If
that's
you're
not how it works.
equivocating
You
that to
just
the
you just
God,
don't understand how it works,
if you're
Arcane.
equivocating this material substance in your brain to an omniscient, conscious, revealing God, you have a false equivocation.
Okay, so let's get back to yours now. We've delved into mine a bit. Can we talk more about how you receive your revelation from a deity? Hello?
Yeah, you broke up there. Either me or you are losing connection. But I want you still haven't established how this thing has
Yeah, but so hold on though. Hold on. I don't think that it's quite fair for me to go into all this depth of the way that I do my certainty or arrive at certainty, and we have not touched on yours other than to say that that a God gives it to you.
Well, you've already
and I've gone into much more depth in my scenario than you have into yours. Can we talk about yours more?
Okay, we still haven't established something. I just want to ask you this then. According to your beliefs, okay, about what you claim to know, is it possible that if an omnipotent and omniscient being did exist and created human beings, that he could let human beings know what is true about reality?
Only if he gave them omniscience themselves.
Okay. Well,
You have omniscience?
I disagree with that. And
well, how is it that you can know things with certainty without being omniscient?
By revelation from someone who is omniscient.
But how can you know that that person is omniscient without being omniscient yourself?
Because that person being omnipotent and omniscient could reveal that knowledge.
In what way without making you omniscient?
It doesn't necessarily or logically follow that I have to be omniscient in order to know some things for certain.
Why is that? If it follows that, if you're saying that only someone that is omniscient can know things for certain, can know things for certain.
So if I ask you though, hold on. If I ask you though, how do you know this? And you appeal to something inside of your own brain that you're claiming to be eternal and yet at the same time have knowledge, I won't grant you that as a foundation to oppose anything that I'm saying. So
okay, well, you could be right. I might be wrong about that, but I'm curious as to how it is that you are revealed to from a God. What is the mechanism through which that revelation happens?
You guys, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So first of all, I'm new to Hangouts. This is my first Hangout ever.
Welcome.
So, thank you. I'm sorry to. I hope I'm not a nuisance, but my first question is a technical question. Can you guys see the picture of me moving?
Yes.
Like, how many fingers am I holding up?
2.
Can you know that for sure? I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. So, all right, that's my first question. And my second question is, do you guys, if I were to, I'm going to need to sign off here pretty soon. If I were to rejoin a conversation like this, where's the best place for me to find it?
I'm sorry, Pat. I missed your question. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, I need to sign off here in a few minutes. If I were to find a conversation like this, again, in Google Hangouts, what's the best way for me to find it?
I would say the best place or the best way to do it is just to get involved with communities. So you can add me. I'm sure Arcane wouldn't mind if you added him on Google+, and then look at our friends. Watch other Google Hangouts on YouTube and find those people
Sure.
who participate in conversations that you find interesting. That's kind of the way I've done it.
Okay.
And then you'll start to see events pop up and things and other people's Hangouts and you can join in.
Excellent. And you find the communities are generally open to questions, whether they be silly or not?
Yeah, actually, a buddy of mine just started a new Hangout club.
Okay, I'll look around. I'll look around. I've seen Fora before, where people just have no patience at all for newbies, and I'm okay with that. But I just, I'm just curious.
Everyone's got to start somewhere.
Yep, just curious about that. All right, well, listen, guys, I'm gonna sign off, but I appreciate the conversation, and I think it's an important one, and appreciate you stopping and answering my questions.
No problem. You have a good day.
Man.
You too. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, okay. So.
Yeah. So when you said that you concede that point, okay, you said that. What did you say? I don't want to straw man you. You said, "Oh, yeah, I realize. I know that I can't know that for sure." That was the last thing you said when.
No,
when
I said I.
Could be wrong.
But
when you said you could be wrong, I just want to clarify.
Mm.
You could be wrong. I was talking about if I asked you how you know something, and you appeal to something inside your own.
Are you there? You broke up on me. Yeah, hey. You broke up on me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, when you said that if I ask you how could you know something, and you said that you would appeal to this thing inside of your own brain, but it does not have knowledge, I would say that you're begging the question.
Okay. I really am. I'm confident enough in my worldview that I don't even feel the need to discuss it much further.
Well,
but
do you know that, or is that just your belief?
I'm sorry?
Do you know that, or is
Yes.
that just your belief?
Yes, I know it.
How do you know it?
I know it for certain.
That begs the question. I asked you, how do you know it?
Right, but I'm not here to defend my position. The reason that I set up this call or chat was to ask questions about the presuppositionalist argument.
Yeah, that's fine.
And so I'm curious as to.
You also made a video defending the logical fallacies of J.D. Kane, and then earlier in this conversation, you admitted that they were fallacies and that they were not valid. Okay, so before we move on, because you engaged me in a combative sort of way, I take it. So if you're an atheist, which I assume you are, I don't want to straw man you.
Yes, I am.
Okay,
yes.
You're an atheist. Okay. In order to ask questions about the presuppositional position, my position,
right,
or the presuppositional argument, okay, I'm going to engage you as an atheist, and I'm going to expose you how this argument works and how it exposes the irrationality and illogicality of atheism.
Okay, but now let's say that my epistemology is irrational. Is your epistemology rational? And does it beg the question?
That's why I ask you if an omnipotent and omniscient creator of my rationality revealed to me that I am rational, and you say that the only way he could do that is if I was omniscient myself.
That's right.
I think that we're going to have to agree to disagree, because I won't grant you that as an opposition.
I'm willing to learn how it could happen outside of making you omniscient. That's the only way I understand that it could happen, or that I would automatically grant. But I'm wondering, how does it happen if you are not omniscient? How is it that you can know anything with certainty?
By revelation from someone who is omnipotent and omniscient.
Again, how does that happen? What is the mechanism by which you gain that information?
Well, just because you don't agree with
I'm
it,
not saying I disagree. I'm just asking how.
Well, I don't need to know how an omnipotent and omniscient God does things in order to know what he has shown me to be true.
Okay.
So it doesn't logically follow that I have to be omnipotent and omniscient to understand an omnipotent and omniscient revelation.
Okay, but so do you get this from the Bible?
What from the Bible exactly?
This revelation?
There's some revelation in Scripture, sure.
About knowing things with certainty?
Absolutely.
Okay. So where's that Scripture?
Well, I won't do a Bible study with you until you can justify knowledge.
Okay, I've already justified knowledge.
Not not to me, not validly. You appeal to your own brain, which begs the question.
Well, I think that you're appealing to something that you have not justified yourself.
Well, so you claim to have to be able to defeat hard solipsism. That was your claim when you came on here.
Right.
Right. And you said you do that by appealing to something that does not have knowledge, which resides inside of your own brain.
That's right.
Right. Well, if you don't see how that does not defeat hard solipsism, you're not going to see how God can defeat hard solipsism.
Okay.
Right.
So there's no way that you can explain how it is that you come about your revelation from God.
He reveals things many ways. He reveals things innately through nature and through Scripture.
Okay. So let me ask you this: is this revelation innate or in something that's inherent to every single person that's alive?
Everybody knows that God exists.
Okay. Can everyone know things with certainty and know that they are not a brain in a vat?
Absolutely.
And they can trust their senses and reason?
If I asked you, do you know that you're in this hangout with me? If you were to say anything other than yes, it would be seen as absurd.
Right. But what I'm asking is, can everyone trust their senses and reasoning?
Everyone to a degree, yes.
Okay.
Now, unless they have brain damage or something like that that scrambles the signal in their computing brain, that's a special case. But there is an ultimate standard that we all adhere to, namely that we all understand. Well, me and you specifically, since we're speaking with one another, we assume that we both have properly functioning cognitive faculties.
Right. And you believe that my faculties, my cognitive faculties, are functioning properly, correct?
I know they are to an extent.
Okay. If we went to, I mean, I'm curious how it is that you come to know things about the outside world.
Because I was created in the image of God, and God has revealed to me, being all-powerful and all-knowing, that I can trust that I am in the right reality.
But there are people who have also been in your worldview, and they've been created in the image of God, whose perception of the world is not accurate, correct?
Sure.
Okay, why did God create those people without that cognitive ability?
Well, again, before you ask me about, God's plan, okay, or whatever, you still have not justified knowledge. So I would tell you from this point moving forward that the proof of God is that without God you cannot prove anything, and I think you've proven that in this conversation.
Well, but okay, so how can I tell?
Here, you can either accept that your two options are either Jesus Christ or absurdity.
Right.
Now you can walk away thinking I want absurdity, but I don't think you honestly deep down absurdity. Don't live consistent with a worldview where you cannot know anything outside of your own brain. So you're going to affirm
I can know things outside of my own brain, and I've told you that.
Yeah, but you didn't justify it. You just begged the question. And if you can't see that you begged the question,
you're begging the question as well. You just do it by invoking a deity.
Well, if you can't, there you go with another two-quote fallacy.
No, I'm saying you have not justified your mechanism for coming to absolute knowledge.
Do you know that?
You've made a claim. Yes, I know it.
Do you know that I have not justified it?
Yes, I do know that.
And you know this how?
I know it in the same way that I know everything, the same way you do. And I know that you're pretending to know things that you don't know.
That I spoke about before. You're going to be inconsistent in this argumentation. Before you said that you know things by appealing to something inside of your own brain, correct?
Right, and you have it too. And but I can say that
wait a second. What was my epistemology?
Your epistemology was wrong. But
all right. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate you wanting to reach out to me. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for your time too. I've exposed the fallacies and the absurdity of your worldview. Come back again.